two, whoo!
Welcome to Authenticity Lab, a podcast where we celebrate the journey of reconnecting with our authentic selves. I'm Dr. Kelsey Miles. I'm a musician, a songwriter, and also a chemistry professor. Each week, I'll share a new story and I'll break it down using the scientific method. You see, I use music and science to better understand the world within me and also the world around me. My hope is that every episode leaves you feeling more inspired to live boldly, lead a life of curiosity, and become your truest version of yourself. And in today's episode, we're talking about the anxiety that you can feel when you aren't sure what the outcome will be. How do we get more comfortable with not knowing what will happen? And we're going to talk about the idea maybe your best is enough. Let's take a moment, and before we start, let's find out if this episode is something that will be useful for you. I want you to reflect on your life and any moment in your life when you felt uncertain about, you didn't know what the outcome was going to be. This could be something with a job interview or maybe a relationship. You went on a first date. You weren't sure if they wanted a second date. Or maybe there was a car that you really wanted and you were wanting to give them a different offer. You try to buy a house and you put an offer in. And I want you to think about that situation or many of them. And I want you to ask yourself and reflect on it. Did you have any anxiety or worry during any of those situations that were a little bit in the unknown? I know I have for sure. And I think about this, have really thought about this week. It was finals week at Avila University. And so the anxiety coming up from my students and their not knowing what the outcome was going to be was just on fire and everywhere in every single email. But I really reflect on this. If this is you and you've experienced that worry or anxiety in times when you've been unsure and not knowing what the outcome was going to be, this episode is for you. When I reflect on how much time in my life I have worried or had anxiety about not knowing, I really don't like it. I don't like how much time and energy I've spent there. And not that I can't really regret it because it already happened and that would just be an extra waste of time. But I really try not to as much anymore. And I know that I don't do it as much as I used to. This is something that affects all of us. This is a very typical survival response. We need this. It's not like worry and anxiety has no importance in our life. It's been very useful when we weren't sure about something so we could monitor and assess the risk coming up. But when we think about situations where all that's being asked of us is to do our best, and the outcome will be the outcome, and no amount of worrying can change the outcome, those are the ones that I want to not worry and stress over. I'm going to say that again. That's very important. I'm not saying that anxiety and stress is all like terrible and bad. We should never feel it. I think that there are some situations when you feel a little anxious, it's a signal that you aren't safe or it's something you need to pay attention to. What I'm talking about are things like final exams or putting an offer into a home that you feel really secure about, and then you spend the entire night worrying whether or not they're going to take your offer. Think about those times when we spend all that energy worrying and stressed out when we could have just been enjoying life, trusting that we did our best, and then let the outcome be what it will be. Those are the moments that we're going to talk about in today's episode. The story in this episode is brought to you by my students at Avila University who had their finals week this past week. The stress levels were incredibly high. The anxiety, the stress of trying to make sure you get a certain grade. This is the end of the semester. These are cumulative exams, meaning everything in the semester we've learned is fair game. And that can cause a lot of stress for students, especially when they're trying to get a certain outcome. So what I noticed was I was getting these emails before the exams. They wanted me to make it easier in somehow. They were asking for more note cards or certain things I specifically asked them to memorize. They wanted me to not have them memorize it now, even though it had been a requirement the entire semester. And it was interesting to see these emails come in and the games that they were trying to play to try to get me to make it easier. It was so interesting. Instead of receiving emails asking me more questions about how they could better prepare, I was just getting emails just telling me how stressed they were and how much anxiety they were feeling. I share that for a couple of reasons. One, because I have been there. And two, because what's happening, if the scientifically what's happening is when we get stressed about uncertainty, our cortisol levels increase. And cortisol is that stress hormone. And it makes it more difficult to think about complex problems when you have high cortisol. And this stress response that increases our cortisol actually allows us to be more alert. The idea is that it's really our survival mode kicking in, and then our body thinks there's maybe some risk and there's something dangerous nearby, like a saber-toothed tiger. And so, in order to get away from the saber-toothed tiger, we need to be able to run. That's not going to give you enough energy and blood flowing to your brain in order to do complex problem solving. That's not what that survival mechanism does. That fight or flight mode does not help you solve any chemistry problems. And that's what I was noticing with these students in their emails is that they were coming from places of, I am just freaking out right now. And they couldn't self-regulate. This really made me reflect on how I was when I was in college because, of course, because I'm so wise and older now, I think to myself, I've never had that kind of stress and anxiety. And I remember when I first started teaching, because this happened a little bit at University of Wisconsin-Madison, students getting stressed. And I remember calling my mom and asking her, and telling her about this, and then asking her, I wanted to know, like, was I like this? And she said, oh, yeah. She was like, you were always trying to make sure you got all the points and everything. And I guess maybe it was more for making sure I got every point that I earned on the work that I did. But I still remember getting anxious about exams, really wanting to do well. I remember pulling some all-nighters to make sure that I had it. So I'm getting these emails, I'm replying, trying to help these students not be so stressed, which I can only do so much. It's on them to emotionally regulate. And I wonder what's going on in their brain. Like when you can't logically think about complex problems, you can't see that you're actually making things worse. And so the hypothesis they had, I guess, was of like stressing out about it, emailing my professor maybe would give me some relief, and hopefully I gave them some relief. But at the end of the day, the experiment is the experiment. They ran the experiment, they took their test. And then what was interesting to me is the stress of the unknown did not stop. I started receiving emails this past weekend asking me if I had them graded. The exam was on Thursday. I had a show on Friday and Saturday, and I had a busy weekend. And so I didn't have time to even respond. Monday morning comes in, and I've got all these emails being so stressed out about their final exam score. And I thought a lot about that. This is why I'm filming this episode. I want to know how much time they spent stressing out about that this weekend after they took the exam. When we spend time stressing out about something that's already happened, that there's literally nothing you can do. There is nothing that student can do to change the score they got on that final exam. Any amount of energy spent on that, worrying about it, is not going to affect the outcome. And there I am responding to these emails, of concern. And it really made me want to talk about it here because we all do this. I mean, how many times I've done this in my life so much where I've had stress and anxiety about something that I cannot change the outcome of. It's out of my control, yet I still get anxious about it. So I thought what we could do together is that I thought we could have a life experiment this week. And this is where I'm going to challenge you. I want you to think about something in your life that ideally it's happening now It could also be something you're reflecting on that has happened before. But I want you to really put this in your back pocket the next time that you have or you're stepping into a place of you aren't sure what the outcome will be. I want you to pause and I want you to consider the following thing. What if doing your best is enough? Okay? What if doing your best is enough? And I want you to sit with that. What if doing my best is enough? And I want you to sit with that and see how it feels the very next time you start to step into this unknown space where you don't know what the outcome is and you know there's nothing you can do to change it. Like I said in the beginning, this is something we've all done. This is something I still do. And it's something that I wanted to remind myself, and hopefully this is a good reminder for you too, because it sure is for me. If I did my best doing something, really, really did my best, what is worrying about it going to do for me? Now, one could argue that the worry and anxiety that I feel is so that I make sure I can do it even better next time. And I'd argue that until you get the outcome and let that outcome kind of sit for a little bit, you're just wasting time. How many times have you, if you're listening still, this means that it's still resonating with you. So let's see if this does as well. How many times in your head have you played out a variety of situations and a variety of outcomes to try to manage how you will deal with that? Oh, I've done that so much. I've done that with like conversations, and I used to do this a lot more. And the less and less I do that, the better things are. It allows me really to be fully in the moment. It also allows life to really surprise me. I've had a couple really big surprises recently of things I really didn't think were going to happen. But if I had stressed out about maybe it being a possibility, I would not have been enjoying my life as much as I have been. So we can talk more about kind of the aftermath of this in another episode, but really what I'd like to challenge you on is the very next time that you start to step into something unknown, I want you to catch yourself. Catch yourself if you start to worry and have anxiety for the outcome, if there's nothing else you can do. If you've done your best, I want you to sit with the idea, what if doing my best is enough? And let me tell you what, friend, it is. It always is. It always is. And your best changes every day. And so if the outcome comes and it didn't work out as well as you wanted it to, it is then that you can analyze it and draw a conclusion of how you can better prepare for that situation for next time. Sometimes the answer is there was absolutely nothing different that you could have done. Sometimes you'll find that there is something you could have done better. And either way, you'll have enjoyed the process of waiting for the outcome. Get your mind off of it. Go do something else. If you aren't able to affect the outcome by worrying about it, which most of the time we're not, don't. If you can, pause. Tell yourself to get busy doing something else. Don't get in the spiral. It's no fun. It's no fun. So, if you're one of my students listening, I get that anxiety is a thing. I am asking you to get more comfortable with the unknown. The unknown never stops in life. And the more like yourself you can be through no matter what unknown thing is happening in life, no matter what uncertainty is in front of you, the more comfortable you are with uncertainty, the more you'll enjoy life and flow through it. And as just a little bonus for this episode, that student squeaked by with an A. I want to thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Authenticity Lab, where we talked about the unknown and what if your best is enough. I'd love to hear from you if you enjoyed this episode or something came up for you, or it worked when you gave it a go, or it didn't work when you gave it a go. Either way, email me at kelsey@kelseymiles.com. And also, please share this with a friend or someone you know, a family member that's going through something uncertain and they need to hear that doing their best is enough. I'll be back next week with a new life story and a new life experiment to help you live more boldly, lead a life of curiosity, so that you can keep being your most amazing, authentic self.
Yeah, that house will always call you.